The snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation.
He'd been dead for 10 days before they found him.
Okay, wow. Let's really sink our teeth into that opening. I mean, right away you're hit with this feeling that something is just profoundly wrong.
Exactly. It's
Pro-
not just, oh, someone died. It's the delay in understanding, the sheer weight of it all.
Yeah, it plunges you straight into the aftermath, doesn't it, before you even know what happened?
And that's crucial. It's less about the what's initially
Yeah.
and more about this huge sense of consequence just hanging there. It tells you this isn't just a story, it's about the ripples.
Right, the ripples through this very tight group, and that's what we're getting into today. You shared these really compelling excerpts from Donna Tartt's novel, The Secret History.
Yeah, we thought it'd be an interesting shift,
Mhm.
moving from our usual articles and research to look at these themes through fiction.
It definitely gives us a different lens, a chance to unpack these really complex human dynamics, relationships, all through a narrative.
And what's so powerful is how Tart uses this fictional setup, these classic students at a college in Vermont, to explore things that feel very real. Even early on, you sense the intensity, the
The
performance
hell-
of it all.
Oh, absolutely. Performance is a good word. They seem like this exclusive club almost. The narrator, who's just I, sees them as highly unapproachable, but also like magnetic.
We get these little snapshots, don't we?
Yeah.
Francis Abernathy, wealthy, talking to cats.
Henry, also rich, apparently a language
Well,
genius.
there's Anacreon, yeah. And Bunny, yelling from windows. The twins, Charles and Camilla, they're just these
Right.
vivid figures.
And the narrator desperately wants in. He's drawn to what he thinks is their freshness and candor, even if he suspects it might just be superior art.
A contrast is key, isn't it? His background, piano and my father's gas station,
Mhm.
versus their implied world of, well, privilege.
Yeah, it sets up this immediate imbalance. Francis and Henry are explicitly wealthy. Even Bunny has this air about him.
And you see that playing out subtly, like in the classroom, that whole bit about Greek, the locative case, Carthage.
You're right. The narrator makes a suggestion, and you can just feel his insecurity, the unspoken hierarchy in the room.
Totally. Henry's quick correction, Camilla's slightly odd question. It really flags the narrator as the outsider there. He worries Henry would be glad to catch me in a mistake.
It's small, but it says so much about how they operate.
And it's not just pure intellect either. Henry shoots off that Latin remark and Bunny's teasing him. Happy now, I guess you raked them over the coals pretty good, eh?
Yeah, like an inside joke, another little wall goes up.
Exactly. A shared language, shared understanding he's not part of yet. Even dismissing goodbye Columbus for Dante and Virgil. It's that intellectual snobbery again.
But then their professor, Julian, he starts talking, and it gets deeper, weirder maybe.
Well, yeah. His lecture on the Greeks isn't just academic. He talks about order, sure, but also the unseen world, emotion, darkness, even barbarism. It's almost a recruitment speech.
That phrase he uses, beauty as terror, that really stuck with me. Whatever we call beautiful, we quiver before it. It gives their whole intellectual pursuit this dangerous edge.
It really does. This idea of wanting to lose control, throw off the chains of being for an instant, it's intense stuff.
And referencing Euripides' Maenads.
Yes, more like deer than human being. Those figures were all about ecstatic, sometimes violent ritual. Julian's linking them suggests these students are drawn to, well, crossing lines.
It's powerful stuff. Bellowing bulls, springs of honey, ripping away the veil to face naked, terrible beauty. It's not just books, is it? It feels like they're seeking something primal.
Definitely. Maybe that's the real core of their bond, this shared desire to push boundaries.
And it's such a contrast to the narrator's other interactions, like that awkward chat with his doormate about Bunny.
Yeah, it shows how little he actually knows about them individually.
And then that weird story about Spike Romney, the motorcycle gang, and Henry showing surprising strength.
So jarring, right? This bookish guy, suddenly capable of real force. It hints there's more going on under the surface.
And then the lunch with Bunny, that really pulls back the curtain.
Oh, definitely. The drinking, the clumsy attempt to make the narrator pay the forgotten wallet. It's manipulative, entitled.
And maybe not that bright about it. Like Henry says, he's not even very clever about it, is he?
Such a cutting remark. Shows real disdain, even within the group. It makes you wonder why they keep him around. What's his role?
Good question. Maybe he grounds them, or maybe something else holds them together.
Could be. But then Camilla invites the narrator to dinner. That feels like a potential turning point.
Absolutely. The first real crack in the wall. And then Francis tells him Bunny dropped out of 10th grade, refused to take SATs.
It just adds to the strangeness. Henry clearly doesn't care about normal credentials.
And the narrator's own vague reason for being there. I like the catalog. Everyone seems a bit mysterious.
So when he finally gets invited in to that champagne and stout gathering, it feels significant.
Even Bunny's sarcastic welcome, well, if it isn't my partner in crime, feels like foreshadowing, doesn't it?
Ominous, yeah. And Francis's house? The lemon yellow sitting room? Gilt mirrors. It screams old money, a different planet from the narrator's life.
But they do start bonding, don't they, through these almost mundane things.
Right. Late nights in the library with Henry. Those weird drives with Francis to the allergist, the dentist.
Your root canal. You wouldn't think that's bonding material.
Apparently it was. And just drinking at the bar, it highlights the human connection forming underneath all the posing.
Plus that magnificent laziness of weekends at Francis's. Sounds kind of idyllic, in a strange way.
But even then you get these unsettling moments.
Yeah.
Like that image of Camilla limp in Henry's arms, her head thrown back like a dead girl's.
Ugh, yeah. That's chilling. Feels like a glimpse of the future.
Totally. And the planned trip to Rome for Henry and Bunny. You sense the tension there. Bunny's all excited, but he's constantly hitting Henry up for cash.
It feels like Bunny's exploiting him, and Bunny teasing the narrator about having nowhere to go for the break. It's just mean.
It is. And his whole approach to that John Donne paper, terrible sources, cramming, just highlights how much he relies on the others, especially Henry. Academically, he's lost.
So when the semester ends, the narrator's left behind. Alone.
Yeah, the contrast is stark. Them going off to fancy homes or trips, him stuck in the dorms, then that grim warehouse.
With Leo the hippie.
Yeah.
The neglect, that awful roof incident. It just emphasizes his isolation, his vulnerability.
Even the visits to Dr. Rowland, the psychologist who doesn't seem to help much.
Right, like he has no real support system outside this weird, intense group.
That whole period feels almost surreal. And then the incident at the Boulder Tap, the Lost Quarter, getting his head smashed, it's a brutal reminder of the dangers just outside their little bubble.
But then Henry steps up, right? Takes care of him in the hospital.
He does, brings him books, toiletries, but there's still that detachment, isn't there? That focus on his own reading was the weird mix.
Concern, but distant. And insisting on taking the uncomfortable fold-out bed. It's odd. Maybe controlling?
Possibly. It definitely doesn't fit Bunny's description of Henry being hard to live with. The narrator finds him quiet, considerate.
And Henry knows about Bunny's family's money problems. He seems to know more than he lets on.
Definitely. Which makes the later tensions even more noticeable. Bunny's sarcastic digs at Henry taking in the sick.
Yeah, Henry seems really agitated by that. And Julian just vaguely mentions classes starting and then poof, he's gone. Adds to the unease.
And the missing Greek lexicon. That's the trigger, isn't it? Sends the narrator to Henry's house.
And Henry's just dropping these weird cryptic lines. Argentina, canceling reservations, and blaming the narrator. You had the key. What was that about?
It screams plan gone wrong.
Yeah.
Something they were trying to do fell apart. And Francis taking Bunny off to Manchester. Feels like a diversion tactic.
Keeping him out of the way. And then they're talking about escaping to Argentina, Uruguay. Sounds desperate.
Desperate, exactly. And this is where it really shifts. Henry talking about the primal appeal of losing control. It hints at something much bigger, much darker.
And then Francis drops the bomb. Bunny knows. Has known since November. About this. But he hasn't gone to the police.
Which confirms there is a secret. Something major. And Henry's explanation for Bunny's silence is ice cold.
Fear of being implicated. And Henry basically threatening to take Bunny down with them if he talks.
Chilling. And Henry's worried that Bunny's a fool. He'll spill the beans eventually. The stakes just shot way up.
Then Henry casually mentions the narrator's alibi for whatever that was.
Yeah.
You went to the movies, the 39 steps. It feels like he's planting it.
Maybe, deliberately, maybe not. But it locks the narrator in deeper. In that incident with hitting the deer, Henry's reaction is so detached, almost clinical.
Like death doesn't faze him. And then Bunny's slip up at lunch talking about blood, Battenkill County.
A huge risk. Shows how fragile their secret really is.
Meanwhile, Bunny's just getting more demanding. Clothes, Italian books. Henry's footing the bill.
And sounds completely ungrateful. Henry's account of the Italy trip is damning. Insulting people, complaining, demanding sweets.
Just awful behavior. And Henry contrasts it with his own thriftiness, willing to rough it rather than borrow. Shows the difference in character.
Plus Francis is in Bunny's room. The mess, the broken chair Mr. Hatch takes away, it implies violence has already happened.
The narrator's comment is disturbing too, how Bunny's mind got knocked out of kilter, while his own adjusted after the murder. Which murder? The farmer. It suggests he's becoming numb to it.
And Bunny's still being awful, especially about women, about Camilla, just reinforcing how unlikable he is.
And Judy Poovey seeing Henry with stolen books near a head shop just adds to the general weirdness and potential crime.
But then the mushroom conversation. Amanita phalloids. The death cap.
And Henry needing a dosage formula. There's no ambiguity there. They're planning to poison Bunny.
The narrator is horrified, but his objections are so weak. Can't they trace poison? He's trapped.
Trying to solve that dosage equation underscores how cold and calculated Henry is and how out of his depth the narrator feels.
The paranoia ramps up. Camilla mentioning South America again. The failed escape plan.
And Henry confirming Julian knows and approves. That's a huge twist. Julian's complicity is shocking.
Especially with Julian having those rare mushrooms, Claudius's favorite. And making that pointed comment about how Claudius died. It's almost theatrical malice.
Then Bunny confronts the narrator. Can't stomach it any longer. He clearly knows something significant now.
Yeah, all true. Swear to God. Nobody knows but me.
Sounds like you figured out part of the story. Maybe about the farmer. It feels like the fuse is lit.
And the meeting in Henry's. The atmosphere is thick with tension. Charles, Francis,
Mm-hmm.
they're all there.
And Francis just asks it point blank. The plan is to push Bunny off the ravine in broad daylight. Just like that.
And Henry just confirms it. Calmly answers the questions about witnesses. It's utterly bone-chilling.
Then Bunny shows up. Right there in the woods. Yellow slicker. Total coincidence or...
The timing is awful. The greeting is so awkward. Buddy thinks they're just sneaking around.
And Henry appears. Covered in mud, holding a trowel. Greets Bunny so pleasantly, it's terrifying.
Bunny's sarcastic question. What you doing? Burying the dead? And Henry's reply, actually, it's very lucky you happened by. The end is swift after that.
Afterwards, the narrator struggles with it. He knows it was terrible, but he can't quite label them bad. That self-justification is complex.
Yeah, and comparing the first murder of the farmer to a simple event and Bunny's death to a depth charge, he recognizes the scale of the repercussions this time.
But they try to act normal, or the narrator does, that detached party encounter.
It shows how disconnected he is. Anxiety, insomnia. Francis is falling apart too, fidgeting, needing doctors. The trauma is real.
Then the news reports start. Bunny's disappearance. Cloak Rayburn first defending him, then finding the room. Bunny's parents arriving. The outside world is closing in.
And Julian's gone.
Yeah.
Just vanished. The dean is asking questions. Their academic future is uncertain.
Finding Henry alone in the dark library, he's completely unraveled about Julian leaving.
Calls him a coward, a hypocrite. Furious that Julian seems more worried about his reputation than anything else. A real sense of betrayal there.
And then the final, violent implosion at the Albemarle. Charles drunk, Henry snapping.
Slapping Charles, pulling a gun,
Yeah.
and shooting the narrator.
Yeah.
It's chaos.
And their first reaction isn't really concern for him, is it? It's damage control. Get this story straight.
Exactly. The innkeeper arrives. They have to invent something. And Henry's command to Camilla, come here.
Right.
It's just left hanging there, so unsettling.
So the cover story becomes Henry's suicide after accidentally shooting the narrator. Convenient, tragic, but it sticks.
Henry's mother visiting the narrator, telling him Henry transferred the car. A strange, final gesture. And Camilla taking Charles away the day of the funeral, the same day as their court date. Only Francis goes to the burial. The end of the group, really.
That thread binding them just snaps. They all drift apart.
Francis becomes a recluse. The twins isolate themselves. Camilla's contact fades.
The narrator tries to move on. Brooklyn, recovery, another relationship that fails, L.A. But he ends up back in Hampton.
Right. For his senior year. Notices Henry's roses have gone wild. The past is still there.
And those final encounters with Francis in Boston, Francis expecting Henry to just reappear, that hallucination in the bathtub.
Shows how deeply traumatized Francis is. Convinced Henry might have faked his death.
And the narrator admits he felt like he saw Henry too in the hospital. It's this lingering sense of unreality, of haunting.
Camilla just shuts down when Henry's mentioned. Can't talk about it.
She leaves and the narrator stays, left with it all.
So yeah, these excerpts, they really pull you into this dark, intricate world. So many questions about morality, consequence, friendship even.
Definitely. And looking back, you see all those little clues Tartt planted, the foreshadowing, those aha moments that maybe didn't click the first time.
It really makes you think about their motivations, What drove each of them? What were they really searching for in all that darkness?
And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it, that final thought? To what extent can shared experience, even something truly terrible, bind people together? And, I mean, what's the ultimate cost of that bond?
And maybe, do we ever really truly know the people closest to us, what they're capable of?